I think McLaren is one of the car companies that does exotic cars the best right now. I think they have almost an more Italian than the Italians themselves, with the very fluid emotional curvatures that we have on the cars and the big beautiful chamfers. So now we have the Artura Spider, and I think it looks just as good as the coupe versions. And this is one of these cars that it doesn't matter if you have the top up or the top down, it's still going to look gorgeous. So we're going to have a look at this car from a front, side, and rear. I'm going to let you know why I think McLaren is doing a fantastic job these days when it comes to the design. But before we do that, let's have a look at this article from Car and Driver. So, the convertible Artura's arrival brings updates and upgrades that also extend to the coupe, including a revised suspension and 19 extra horsepower. You can get these horsepower for free if you already own an Artura. You just have to bring it to a McLaren dealer and they will update the engine for you. So the V6 hybrid now produces 690 horsepower, and deliveries of the 2025 Artura Coupe and the Spider will begin midway through this year. The torque is unchanged, it's 531 pound-feet of torque. You have an electric motor as well with the same output of 94 horsepower. And I do love this color. This is so like a dark blue, almost purple-like color for this specific press photo here, looking fantastic. So McLaren claims 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Top speed is limited to 205 miles per hour. That makes me wonder, how fast can this car actually go if it's limited at 205 miles per hour? And this is pretty interesting as well. So it's a new feature for 2025 called spinning wheel pull away. Very British way of saying burnout mode, essentially. So we have this new feature now allows for a rowdy wheel spin when mashing the throttle from a stop. So you can essentially do a burnout. So here we have a photo of the rear deck and the engine bay, and what McLaren had to do here is to move these further back and also have this beautiful buttresses here that have a transparent layer to them so you can have a better visibility. Stuff like that is just something that I don't really see on any other car manufacturer than McLaren. You still have 3 handling modes. You have Comfort, Sport, and Track, and carbon ceramic brake rotors paired with lightweight aluminum calipers. The engine note has been enriched thanks to a new valved exhaust system that includes a tuned resonator, and the hardtop can open and close in just 11 seconds. Not bad at all. And you can also do this from the outside of the car with a key. And the hardtop itself is made of carbon fiber composite panel, but McLaren also offers electrochromatic glass that can turn from opaque, where it blocks a claimed 99% of sunlight, to transparent at the touch of a button. This is a really cool feature. I had the chance to see what that's all about when I reviewed the McLaren GT. So these new buttresses here, as you can see on this side view, they include a glazed polycarbonate portion that helps with the rear visibility and also directs air into the engine bay. McLaren is one of these companies that they go hard on engineering. So this Spider, even though it has all these 8 additional motors for the roof, for example, it still weighs just 136 pounds more than the coupe, and the rigidity of this is the same as the coupe as well. In the interior, this is another reason why I love McLaren right now. They don't have a single button on the steering wheel. Everything is super clean. Very simplistic interior, but they still have one detail here similar to what Mercedes is doing that is a little bit annoying in the Artura. I'm going to let you know what that is when we jump into Photoshop. The price for this Spider is going to start at $281,000, and the coupe for 2025 will start just over $256,000. So with that said, let's jump into Photoshop here. Let's have a look at this gorgeous machine that is the 2025 McLaren Artura Spider. But here we have a slight top front view of the new Spider. What I love here about McLaren is all these lines and beautiful surfaces looking very organic. As I said, it looks almost more organic than the Italians these days, which should be the other way around. I think the Italians in the 60s, specifically in the 70s, they were the kings of this emotional design, but I think McLaren is really up there right now. I do love this line at the bottom as well, because it does have a connection to the front end, then goes into this black piece in the lower section, and this C shape that we have around the headlight unit, creating this McLaren logo in the main graphics in the front end as well. Now, of course, there's not a lot of changes in the design overall in the front end from the coupe. Now, looking at the side view here, and this is what McLaren does really well in addition to the overall design, is to have the Roadsters or the Spiders still look very beautiful with the roof down as they do with the roof up. If we have this roof up, it literally looks like a hardtop, just a normal coupe version. I love this detail with the side intake here, because look at this. We have you can't really tell it right here, but this chamfer is one of the most beautiful chamfers in production today. It has a nice thickness to it and dynamic feeling, because it gets at the thickest point is right here, and then it goes into thinner as we go lower and as we go further forward from the air intake, creating a tension in this line that I think looks really, really nice. The wheels here, the wheel design look great as well. Personally, I would probably not pick black wheels for this, but have a look at this angle here for this intake, then coming back in the same angle that we have right here in the front end design. And I think Greta here is also very fascinated by this McLaren Artura Spider. Looking at the graphics in the rear end, this is very reminiscent of the P1 with the housing for it, and you can see it more clearly when we go into this rear view here. This section here, how it curves here and then goes down with a super simplistic layout for the taillights, which I think looks great as well, almost like a sort of an elliptical shape for the taillights here. But if you see this at night, it still has a simple design for the key graphics, but they're also 100% recognizable instantly when you see this at night, just because of the different thicknesses and this almost very stretched out cylindrical shape. Further down, we do have this big diffuser, which also look organic and at the same time super functional as well, with these fins sticking down here. And what McLaren had to do here, because we have all the new parts for the Spider, the roof folding down into this section, you can see the cut lines here. We also have these buttresses that we talked about with the beautiful integration of this see-through element or layer that we have right here for visibility. Is something that I don't think I've ever seen on any other car, but it's a great idea because it means this doesn't cover up the view 100%. And what McLaren also had to do here is you see this air intake that then funnels air flows in here and funnels air into the engine bay. They had to move these further back in order to house everything else that is unique for the Spider. Overall, the exterior design of this just still looks just as good as the coupe. And if I were to buy one of these, usually I would always go for the coupe because I love the roof lines of cars. I think that adds so much to the design of the car. But since this, with the roof up, almost looks identical to a regular coupe, I'm not really sure which one I would pick, honestly. And then we have the interiors of a McLaren. As I said, I do love what McLaren is doing. This is very uncommon today to have no buttons at all on the steering wheel. And what that tells me is that this is a 100% driver-focused car. However, there's one detail here. I've talked about this in Mercedes as well. You see this infotainment screen that has a nice design to it. You can see we have a different curvature on this side than we have on the more straight left side. We also have different radiuses in each corner, creating a nice feel to it. It doesn't look very well integrated, I wouldn't say, because everything else above it and below it, it feels like it's floating here in midair. And then you also have this slight angle to the driver. You can see how it's angled outwards to this side. And this is, again, one of these angles that doesn't feel confident enough for me. I would much rather have it just be centered. It doesn't matter if it makes it a little more difficult for the driver to fiddle around with what they need to do in there, but it would just look so much better and give me peace. I do like pretty much everything else in this interior. This is what I want to see from an exotic car, a driver's car. No buttons, as I said, on the steering wheel. Big carbon fiber pedals right behind the steering wheel, popping out below and above the spoke itself. We have a nice housing for the gauge cluster, completely digital, as you can see. And we have the gear selector down here in a very simple layout as well, with a big start button in the middle. So overall, a great design again by McLaren. And again, McLaren is just on a roll when it comes to creating beautiful and emotional cars that still have a clear brand identity to them.